Hello and welcome to the creaking salt-soaked tables of the Brazen Hydra pub in Bilgewater. We're your hosts, Ant Groven,
Conquest,
and today we'll be sharing a pint and talking all things Runeterra and beyond.
we covered a few things last week, and by a few things I mean, well, we talked a whole bunch about professions. At some point, we pivoted off to talking about zones of the world,
We did.
and we talked about that for like 50 minutes. Let's talk about some more profession stuff.
Yeah.
All right, specifically profession progression. I think that's something we did not talk enough about. We talked a little bit about, especially we were talking about Final Fantasy's profession system versus World of Warcraft's, and which one should be implemented into the Riot MMO, and how World of Warcraft, as we know, is kind of more of the as you're adventuring, doing your own thing. Profession is something you're doing on the side, right?
Mm-hmm.
As you're doing your quests and your main stuff, professions are always going to be there. You might have some little upgrades to your, like if you're a blacksmith, upgrades to your armor as you're leveling. Maybe make your weapon do a little more damage by like buffing it with like a sharpening stone. I love that stuff. I love sharpening. That stuff's so cool to me.
I'm going to emphasize I love that stuff. Continue.
Yeah. Yeah. Compared to maybe Final Fantasy 14's progression, which is where it's a completely different avenue of content, right? You are either doing the main storyline or you're doing the profession storyline, which there's a stinking profession storyline, right? Now, given Entgrove being the lore master that he is, I'll ask you, do you think there's enough lore around, say, things like blacksmithing and like jewel crafting, or like whatever professions might be available in Runeterra?
Yeah.
What professions do you think those are, and do you think they would have enough lore around them to make entire storylines with characters and the way Final Fantasy 14 does it?
So first of all, 100%, there's a ton of story when it comes to professions. Like we can talk about Demacia infusing with light. We could talk about, there's tons of stuff in Piltover, obviously. But I want to talk about the Hearthblood. Now, the Hearthblood served under Ornn. No, they didn't serve under Ornn. They weren't like his worshippers, similar to Volibear, but they served under Ornn, and Ornn was like, he's the craftsman of the Freljord. He is the craftsman. He's a blacksmith. His main weapon is a hammer. He looks like a dwarf. The guy's a blacksmith. And these are people that like, they didn't worship Ornn, but they offered up their works to Ornn, like for his approval. He'd look at them and say whether they did a good job, offer, advice on how to do better, basically, kind of thing.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah. So they loved Ornn. And supposedly there's no Hearthblood left, but I did a video. I have a video come out on a short story, which shows that there actually might be a couple of them left in the world, which is really cool. And so I would really love to see like a crafting procession in the Freljord where you're learning under the Hearthblood. Like I think blacksmith should be universal. Like you're a blacksmith. Yeah. And then you can subspecialize. Like you don't, even though you're from the Freljord, you can subspecialize and choose like, I want to be learning from the Demacians and kind of specializing in whatever.
Oh, definitely.
Using light into my shield or something like that. Versus you're in the Freljord, you're one of the Hearthblood and you're kind of sub under Ornn, learning from them. And there's ton, and you can be in Piltover where you go more of an engineering blacksmith route.
Oh, right? Yeah. No, I definitely think at some point, right, we're gonna have the Bandle City type engineering,
exactly.
Right? Where you're gonna have the giant like mech robot that you can like summon at high enough level engineering in like the open world, and that kind of stuff, right? But like, yeah, honestly, for that alone, I think just like even like Bandle City engineering is the first thing I always think of, because you see the dude in the big robot, and you're like, yeah, no way you can't do that in the Runeterra MMO, right?
Yep.
So like surely there's enough there to make like some cool stories and stuff.
But it doesn't even have to be like infusion of light. It can revolve around petricite, right? It can be like a petricite crafting system, because Demacia is all about petricite. Like Galio is literally made of petricite. It can be like instead of like infusing the light into your weapons, it can be both, where it's like, okay, now we're learning how to craft with petricite compared to the Freya where you're learning how to craft with true ice, or you're learning under Ornn and learning under the Hearthblood and that kind of stuff. So there's definitely enough lore there where you could absolutely have this crafting story like what you're talking about with Final Fantasy. But at the same time, I want to ask you, so in Final Fantasy, if it's a separate storyline, does it contribute to your like leveling experience? Do you actually, does it like can you craft stuff that you're going to wear to make you easier to level kind of thing?
Yes, but my problem was that I did not start my profession until once I completed like essentially the vanilla of the game, going on to the first expansion.
Yeah,
because you have to go through every expansion of Final Fantasy 14. You have to play through everything, at least everything from the main quest line. That problem was that I was already way out leveled my mining and blacksmithing. So if I did want to make something that was actually useful for me specifically, At least like I know just the gathering professions have a quest line, I believe. I think my blacksmithing quest line was not nearly as like important as my mining quest line,
Yeah.
which was interesting. But at that point, it was like, yeah, I would have to grind for a long time for my mining level to be the same level as my warrior level,
Mm.
right? So that was definitely problematic. But I think that's also an issue with World of Warcraft, right? Is that if you are like level, if you're at cap level, oh, actually, no, I know they changed that. They changed that like last expansion, didn't they?
Yeah.
Where now you don't have to like do all the like expansion professions. You just do the most recent expansion profession.
Yep.
Oh yeah, that's crazy. Okay. Yeah, honestly, I kind of wish Final Fantasy 14 did that, but they're also very adamant about following the storyline.
Yeah. There's a whole story there that
Yeah.
they'd want you to explore.
Yeah.
But there are
That also
stuff
means you're
like
starting
that.
from level 1 as a mining. So like
Yeah.
you'd have to do a lot of stuff you want to catch up unless you did it straight from the beginning.
I like it. So, do you remember the High Mountain? They
Mhm.
had like a story for blacksmithing.
Love
Is
it.
it kind of like that?
Kind of. Yeah, yeah, actually, yeah, where it
Okay.
has its own characters, its own cutscenes,
Yeah, it
its
did.
own quest line and storyline. Yeah, yeah.
See,
So which I think is very cool.
yeah,
I loved the High Mountain blacksmithing quest line. Oh my god, you get the special hammer
yeah,
for blacksmithing, dude. Legion.
yeah.
Legion was the best expansion.
Legion was the best expansion ever.
It's so much. It did a lot wrong, but man, did it do a lot right. But yeah, I definitely think there's gonna need to be some flavor for the professions, right? I think regardless of if they do the World of Warcraft route or the Final Fantasy 14 route, or if they go do their own thing with professions, who knows? Either way, yeah, Runeterra looks like, just from what we've said so far, has enough flavor in its professions to where, yeah, there needs to be some cool quest lines and some like, awesome
Yeah,
hammer that you can have for your blacksmithing and all that kind of neat stuff. Man, dude, life forging, I could totally see it being like maybe even like kind of like jewel crafting.
yeah.
We can like
Except
buff
for,
your gear with specific stats that you're doing,
mhm.
or even like enchanting. Oh man, dude. No, I could totally see that. I better be like a Noxus blacksmith and I just get to make really spiky armor all the time.
What do you guys do? We just add spikes to stuff.
What
do you
they
guys
can't
do?
hit you if you're pointy all over.
We learn under Orn in the heart of the mountain. Oh, really? What do you do? We work with petricite. It's crazy magic dampening. We add spikes to pretty much everything. So I could improve that for you.
Yeah,
Orn would be so disappointed. He'd be like, "Oh my gosh." Orn literally makes
doing.
Yeah.
Jeez. I
But
mean,
in terms of like professions, right? I feel like I hope that they kind of take some tips from classic WoW where
yes,
you don't have to do professions, but it does make a difference for you if you invest that time in your profession.
that's a very good point. The weight of professions.
Needs to
How
be there.
much should they affect your gameplay?
Yeah.
I completely agree. I don't know how. I always say classic WoW must have been like the greatest accident of all time, right? Too many things fell so perfectly into place
Yeah.
for classic WoW. And that includes how much professions matter.
Mhm.
Because yeah, in classic WoW, the thing is if you don't do professions, you'll never know what you're missing.
Yeah,
But
no.
but once you start doing professions, you can never go back
No.
because it opens the game like wider rather than like vertical.
Yeah,
It's
it
not
does.
vertical progression. It feels like horizontal progression
Yeah.
where it's just another facet of the game that you can access and it helps you in ways that you would never even like think of in terms of buffing your stats and making better gear, sharpening stones.
Yeah. I've always felt like the most obvious example of this to me when I realized how professions help me
Mhm.
is my first profession was well, I mean, this is like my first profession that I actually took seriously was herbalism and alchemy when I was leveling.
Yeah,
And when I was about to die and I took a health pot that I made,
the coolest feeling.
yeah, because I was like,
It's
wow, it actually made, because I had like other stuff that would buff me, right?
Mhm.
And I would use it, but I wouldn't actually know if it's making a difference. It like, oh, I increased my arm.
Yeah, increase your strength by 4, which honestly does make a very big difference if you're like melee.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you won't notice unless you're specifically looking for it. Like, oh, my numbers are way bigger now.
Yeah. Like I didn't notice anything, but when I was about to die and I took a
Mhm.
health pot, or when I was out of mana and I took a mana pot, I was like, wow, like I just
Yeah.
saved myself. I would have had to die here and run all the way back. Instead, because I did that little bit of herbalism and that little bit of
Yeah,
work on the
dude.
side, it saved my life and actually saved me time.
Yeah.
And it happened multiple occasions.
It's so cool. That's why professions are worthy of 2 episodes. Because man, oh man, can they make a world of a difference in terms of your leveling and your open world progression? I think it's huge for just immersion and everything in general. Even just community wise, right?
Yeah.
Like in classic WoW, I remember especially when it first came out, everyone's all over like the Barrens, which is like the first place where all the Horde players kind of meet up at like level 10ish.
Hmm.
And you have no idea how many times I'll be running alongside somebody, helping them do the same quest as me. I hand them a like lion strength potion
Yeah.
that I made from my earth root that I found all around the place.
Yeah. It's amazing.
It's the coolest feeling to trade things that you've made. Very, very like, oh man, this is really a world. This dude took the time to craft this. We're doing this content together. He's helping me out with his potions that he made.
Yep.
Dude, just talking about it sounds so cool. I really hope they take their early progression super seriously. Because you gotta remember that's when a new player is gonna be in. Those are the first things they're gonna experience. Professions definitely help a lot with that. Preventing like your early on questing from becoming too mundane. Just for little interactions like that.
I'll say this too: you can't artificially create those experiences.
Yeah.
It has to
It's
happen
community
naturally.
driven.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
community driven, and that's why you have to make it where not everything is spoon fed.
Yeah,
Because
dude.
people are gonna ask, "Wow, how'd you make that?" Oh, it's you have to get this recipe. It's in this area, and I understand. I do no add-ons for one. I'm just gonna assume that they make
No
the right
add-ons.
decision right now and make it no add-ons.
Yeah.
People, okay. If you add an add-on, it's easier to download the add-on and have all your questions answered.
Yep.
But I'll tell you what's easier than the add-on is if you can't have any add-ons, it's easier just to ask someone in game where they got it from than opening up the browser,
Yep.
googling it. It takes less work, and that's why that makes those interactions happen by themselves.
Dude, it still happens all the time in hardcore. There are
Yeah.
times where I'll ask people things and people will ask me things of like, oh hey, like I'm killing these type of Quillabore, but I have to kill these like magic-y Quillabore. Where the heck are they? And then I'll straight up, in my group, I'll head over to the camp where the magic-y Quillabore are, / point the magic-y Quillabore, and then I'll help them kill them.
That's because at least a lot of
That
people,
kind of stuff goes such a long way. It makes me want to come back to the game.
yeah, there's still a difference of you at least need to download the add-on for classic.
Yeah.
Because they're in current WoW, there's like I don't know how Final Fantasy is.
Final Fantasy's pretty
But in current WoW, you don't need it.
Like meters are actually banned in Final Fantasy 14.
Really? So there's no
Yeah, you
add-ons in
cannot have
Final
damage
Fantasy.
meters because they think it like spreads toxicity for the most part, which it kind of does.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I do think it's important to know why the heck did we not do enough damage.
No,
on
you
this
need
fight.
you need damage meters.
I think so too. It's really important to know who's holding your group back because if you can't figure it out, why the heck are you still in the group? You might as well just leave and try again with a different group instead
Yeah.
of just finding out who the problem is.
I'm not for that, but
I kind
I
of
need a damage meter. But like the organic interactions need to happen, and I think right now in retail WoW, you don't even need add-ons.
Yeah.
Everything is given to you. Like you get a quest that shows you exactly where to go, where to kill it, what to do.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, you can open up tabs and find anything you want. A piece of gear, you can find it all there.
Mhm.
Without needing add-ons, because what Blizzard did is like they took what people were making add-ons on and they implemented themselves into the game.
Yeah, this
That
is
you
a
wouldn't need
recent
to
thing.
download an add-on, which is not the right move because
Yeah.
add-ons don't. Not everything an add-on adds is a good thing.
No, add-ons are purely the sole point of an add-on is quality of life, right?
Yeah.
And there should only be so much quality of life you can implement into an MMO specifically,
Mhm.
right? You don't want everything to be handed to you because then why do you need to interact with other players? Most of the time, interacting with other players is to make your life easier, right?
Yeah.
That's like 99% of the time. That's why you're gonna walk up and talk to someone because the game will be easier if you do. If the game's already handing everything to you, you have no reason to talk to anyone.
Mhm.
And that's why you're talking to people in classic WoW and you're not talking to people in retail
Yeah.
outside of like your guild.
Things matter more. And that's why I think profession needs to matter. As much time is invested in character progression, that's how much time I believe should be invested into profession progression.
Yeah.
Like that's how much time the Riot team should invest in profession. That's how important they are to the game, and not just to the economy, but to the world. Because if everyone's goal is the same, everyone's doing the same thing. What are you doing? I'm gearing out to fight to kill this boss. But when you say, "Oh, what's this guy doing?" Oh, he's out mining. He's out
Mhm.
herbalizing. He's building something. Like that makes the world feel much more alive.
Yeah, dude. Especially because I think not everyone should be able to be every profession.
I think that too.
Right.
You shouldn't be every class
Yeah,
in a
exactly.
game.
Because I mean, like even in a case of like Final Fantasy 14, I'm like, okay, like at least in Final Fantasy 14, yeah, you can be every class, but then it's like, well, you can't be every class at once. At the very least, like I still don't like the fact that you can be everything in Final Fantasy 14, but at least, yeah, you still need other people in your group with you, right? Because you can't be 5 people at once.
Mhm.
But in the case where you can be every profession, it's like with enough time, which I guess Final Fantasy 14 is pretty unrealistic. So you have to level up from level 1 every single profession,
I just
which
feel
I
it's
don't think what people
unrealistic in
do.
the world. Like at
Yeah.
the end of the day, if you're gonna be the best at something, you're gonna have to invest in it. And by limiting what you can do, you're saying I'm choosing to invest my character,
Yeah,
choosing
this
to
is going to
invest
be
in
it.
blacksmithing.
Yeah.
So he is going to be a blacksmith, and I'm going to be a great blacksmith. If you can be anything, then it's like okay, but that means you nothing's like not that taking away makes it special, but it's unrealistic that someone could be the best at everything. Like even in our
Yeah.
world, right? Not no one's
Yeah,
the
you
best
need
at
other people.
everything. Yeah,
Yeah.
you need a team. Like someone does this, someone does this, someone does this, and combined you do something
Mhm.
great.
Yeah.
And that's how it should be in the game. Like shouldn't be able to just be I'm peak blacksmithing and herbalism and alchemy and everything.
Hmm.
You should be I have to choose where my character is going to invest his work, and he's my character is going to be this and then I'm working towards that.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's so important for the life of the game. Like, the more your friends need you to be on the game, the more you're going to be on the game, right?
Yep.
The more your guild needs your alchemy skills because you got your alchemy maxed out and you're sick at alchemy, the more you're going to log on and start gathering those herbs.
Yeah, man, it feels good.
Yeah,
It
dude.
does feel good when you're crafting something for the guild. I had
Hmm.
a little bit of that in Legion where I was
Oh, really?
crafting, yeah, for I was alchemist and I would craft like the elixirs, whatever they were for the
Yeah,
whole
for the
guild.
raid team.
Yeah, I would
It's like
craft
so cool.
those. That did feel cool because I'd put them in the guild bank and I'd see them go down. And
Yeah.
the way the guild works, like you had to put in and then you could pull out.
Hmm.
And so like I
Yeah.
was putting in the potions to pull out other stuff.
Dude, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh my
No,
God.
it was cool. That was the only guild that I ever really was like a part of.
Oh,
Because you don't really
that's
need to be a
sick.
part of a guild.
Yeah, no, you don't really need to in retail WoW, which is a bummer.
Yeah.
We definitely need to talk about guilds at some point. I honestly, we're already like 20 minutes in. I don't think we have time talking about guilds because genuinely, guilds are very important. Believe it or not, there's a lot of very important stuff in an MMO.
I don't mind having stuff bleed over. Honestly, I just want to like make sure that I say everything that I want.
Yeah.
So that I can pray and hope that somehow it's heard even slightly,
Mhm.
where it makes it maybe like it probably won't make any difference at all, but maybe just putting it out there, people will think about it and it'll end up getting included somehow, some way, like the no add-ons thing.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that gets out there that says no add-ons for this game. That they're aware that we don't want add-ons.
Me too. More than
Yeah.
at this point, it's pretty clear that this podcast where we talk about things that we want for this MMO
Yeah.
very badly that we hope end up happening, at least until we get any kind of news or content about this MMO.
Mhm.
But until then, I'm perfectly happy talking 100 hours into Riot's ear about what I want this MMO to be.
So there's another thing that I really there's professions, character progression, but there's also like just the story progression.
Mhm.
I think that's a whole different progression in the game,
Ooh.
and I think it's very difficult. Like, I read quests,
Mhm.
and I know, I mean, we have everyone in our family plays MMOs, but I know majority of them don't read quests
Yeah.
because they don't. I personally like to read, but I know a lot of people don't like to read. Like a lot
Yeah.
of times I'll pull up the Runeterra map. If
Mhm.
I'm not doing anything, I'll literally pull up the Runeterra map on my phone. I'll pick somewhere and I'll start reading short stories and
Yeah.
read the character. I'm not even doing anything. This is just what I do
Yeah.
for fun.
Yeah. It's cool.
And so when I get a quest in the game, I'm gonna read it.
Mhm.
But at the same time, it's not the best way to get the story out to players. Like, a lot
Yeah.
of players aren't gonna care about it. But is it worth forcing that on players, or is it better to find a different avenue to go? That's a really tough question for me to figure out.
Yeah. That's fair.
That's where I really get stuck. Is like, I know they're talking about, oh, we're gonna find a better way to deliver the content because the way we're just delivering these short stories right now is not the best way to deliver the story to
Yeah.
players. They
I
understand
agree.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
But at the same time, what can you do in an MMO
yeah.
that's not going to be like, is it all you're going to voice act everything? I mean, you could, if you voice act everything, that's insane.
Yeah.
But
That's especially crazy.
yeah, but I guess you could, like, if you had click on, but then, okay, that's a lot of voice acting.
Yeah, dude. Absolutely. I mean,
I can do like 3 different voices. I don't know if you listen to my short stories. I have an old lady, a young boy, a young girl, and then a really deep voice for like anyone like Orin or something. And then there's me. And that's it. I got 4 voices in the tank and I just sprinkle them.
yeah, I don't. I remember your thresh was really good, actually.
That hurt.
Yeah, I believe it. Oh, it was pretty intense.
Yeah.
It was really good. I don't know. I think we talked a little bit about this before with kind of the parallel what they're doing between how I think classic WoW was really good storytelling because it already had the pieces in place, right? Had
Mhm.
Warcraft right before it.
Yeah.
RTS single player experience to tell a really good story to set up World of Warcraft.
Yeah, you didn't need to know any of the smaller stories to understand the big bads, you know?
Yeah, and
You
that's
didn't
very important too.
Yeah.
I think Warcraft was so perfectly set up for an MMO because yeah, it was like yeah, you have these races with their own cultures and their own little nuances, which leaves plenty of room for them to just plop little characters everywhere, own little stories everywhere all over the zones. Yeah, and then you have your big characters like everyone knows who Tyrande is in
Yeah.
World of Warcraft. Everyone knows Arthas Menethil, the Lich King, right? Everyone knows Illidan Stormrage. So like there are the big characters everyone knows, and their sole purpose is just to look cool,
Yeah.
right? Like Arthas Menethil, the Lich King, has an amazing story. Very like I think he's still one of the most like commonly used like just storylines to this day.
Yeah.
And yet you don't have to know it to look at the Lich King and his army of undead and be like, he looks so freaking cool. So you need to hit both of those avenues. You need to hit both those marks where if you know the story, you love him so much.
Yeah.
And even if you don't know the story, you still look at him, you're like, that's cool.
Yeah. That was our Samicus, our brother. That was him. He just looked
Yeah.
at arts. Wow, that guy's cool. And then he learned the story.
Yeah, dude. I mean, yeah, also, yeah, just thinking, oh man, this world looks so cool. These characters look awesome. That's enough to get people invested in the story too. Right. That's like kind of your first avenue. Because if characters don't look interesting, you're probably not going to start reading.
Yeah.
At least that's how I am.
You know, they could use. So I saw someone one time they used. Well, first before I even talk about this, how does Final Fantasy do it? The story is it the same thing as like a wall of quest text?
I mean, they honestly have a good bit of voice acting. I
Really?
think like I would say, I don't know if it's like probably like 70-30, like 30% of your quests are voice acted. And there's like main storyline. Most of the side quests are almost entirely just text.
Okay, but the main
But your
storyline
main
is what?
storyline, yeah, at least like you're not surprised when you start hearing voice acting.
That's pretty similar to
It's that
now.
common, you know?
I think
Yeah.
that's pretty similar to now in WoW and
Yeah, well, there's so
Dragonflight
many cutscenes.
and voice acting too. Like, a lot
Yeah.
of voice acting now. Where
Yeah.
you're not really reading quests. Like each quest does have it, but then there's a lot of voice acting in between, which would have been a wall of text before.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, I would say Final Fantasy 14 is very similar to how WoW is now with Dragonflight. That like, yeah, you're gonna hear some dialogue maybe once every like 30 minutes or so. You're gonna hear some voice acting just to like hit the big points. Even like just like points that keep the plot moving.
Yeah, you could follow the story now in Dragonflight without reading any of the text.
That's very
Just
true.
by following like the voice acting and the stories and the cinematics.
Yeah.
The small cinematics they do. Yeah,
But I also think that Dragonflight does not have a very crazy story to tell.
yeah, it's still most importantly it has to be a good story
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, Dragonflight's a little just like here's the baddie, I
Yeah.
guess.
First, second, and third it has to be a good story, then delivery.
Yeah.
But the delivery is right.
Yeah, I agree. But yeah, I was saying how like Warcraft kind of sets up World of Warcraft. I definitely, at least I hope, I think I talked about this, how Riot Forge is going to set up the Riot MMO, right?
Oh yeah, they
Riot
are
Forge games.
100%.
Absolutely. I think especially Song of Nunu looks like it's setting up for the MMO.
Mm-hmm.
I would say. I'd be shocked if it wasn't.
Yeah, I feel like Mage Seeker really set up Demacia.
Mhm.
Although there is one thing that I'm worried about. So in the end of Mage Seeker, you do see like the kind of the evolution a little bit of Demacia, where they're kind of saying, oh, okay, mages aren't all bad. And
Mhm.
you know, the King Jarvan sees that his dad actually wanted to disband the mage. If you don't know who Mage Seekers are basically, think of like the inner city army of Demacia, and their whole goal is to seek out mages and imprison them. And
Yeah.
prison in Demacia for mages is not good. Like they'll force you to drink petricite and stuff like that.
Jeez.
Yeah, it's really messed up. Like don't think of it's not like just regular prison. Like this is bad prison.
Bad prison.
Yeah, this is the bad kind of prison. Waterboard with petricite kind of
Yeah.
thing. Okay.
Yeah.
So his dad was looking to disband the Mage Seekers, and at the end, you really kind of see a little bit of a turn for Demacia, where they start saying, "Okay, you know, mages aren't that bad," which I kind of feel like that was the thing that made Demacia really unique.
Yeah, that was kind of what they were built upon.
Yeah.
Right. That's like
And
that was them, especially after the Rune Wars. It's like the whole point of Demacia after the Rune Wars.
yeah, I kind of like was hoping to keep that fantasy alive, where people would join. To be no mage, you can't be a mage in Demacia. No magic
Mhm.
classes in Demacia.
I agree.
If you use any magic in the city, you can walk in Demacia, but if you use any magic in the city of Demacia, like you're gonna get attacked by guards. Like I wanted it to kind
That
of
would be
contain
cool.
that.
Like literally, even if if there's target dummies in the game,
Yeah.
we can like practice your class in the city.
Yeah,
If you start using magic on a target
Yeah.
dummy,
guards will come out.
that would be so cool.
Yeah, like I wanted to keep that, and I'm worried that because at the end of Mage Seeker, they're kind of taking a turn to oh,
Yeah.
we're gonna be okay with mages, that's kind of saying that they're okay with it now.
Dude.
And I kind of don't want that. I want Demacia to stay like magist.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest, that kind of bums me out because it
Yeah.
reminds me a lot of where the Horde and Alliance are now
Yeah.
in World of Warcraft. What's the difference between the Horde and Alliance right now?
Yeah.
There's
Nothing.
like almost nothing, right?
Just
They all have the
the
same
character model.
goals, they have the same objectives, which is kill the big bad that's currently
Yeah.
in the game, and that's it. Yeah, other than that, it's like you have the different races, but really, I think even that's going to change eventually,
Mm.
and that's just a real bummer.
The-
I think that's the saddest thing about World of Warcraft's overarching story.
yeah.
That Horde and Alliance are not a thing anymore. And I'm worried that, yeah, if Demacia starts doing that, it's kind of like, okay, what makes Demacia special now? Like,
Yeah.
what's their thing? What's their like culture? Like, what they're just a city now?
I'm totally fine with like Jarvan kind of being like, oh, we shouldn't be that bad with the mages. Sure, if you want to do that, like the king is not that upset with the mages. But I think Demacia itself should still be a city of no mages, and the military and everything should still be no mages. And
Yeah,
it
I
should still be
like.
that way. It's okay to have like Jarvan, I guess, and Garen because his sister Lux is, magic, that they can be like a little bit wishy-washy. But the whole thing is Demacia is victory only by these set of rules. Noxus is victory as long as it's for Noxus by any means necessary. And that's
Yeah,
the thing that
dude.
made them like so different and so clashy is like Noxus says, oh, you're a mage. As long as you use it for Noxus,
Yeah.
we're good with it. Even if it's like freaking anything crazy, like if it's freaking blood magic, I don't care. As long as you're for Noxus, we're for you.
Wow.
Demacia is like, you can come here and if you're for Demacia, that's great, but you have to adhere to these strict set of guidelines, these strict set of rules.
Yeah,
They literally
dude.
have 5 and if no magic at all, we don't care. That's not how we win.
Yeah.
That's the difference between them. If you start making them like where they're both okay with everything, and now it's like, okay, well, what's the difference between Demacia and Noxus now?
Exactly. I think it's really important for Noxus and Demacia, just a perfect parallel to Horde and Alliance. I think they need to have problems.
Yeah.
They need to not be this perfect welcoming two cities that end up slowly over the game just start becoming really nice and fix all of
Yeah,
their
no.
issues and now they're perfect. Right? Because that's kind of what Horde and Alliance are now. And I would hate to see Demacia and Noxus do the same thing.
Yeah. And it can't be simple either. I don't want it just to be Noxus wants to expand their borders and then Demacia happens to be there. And so it's like they clash over that. I
Mhm.
want it to be like fundamental differences between these two nations and the way that they think.
Yeah, exactly. I want them to clash.
Yeah.
I want there to be issues and I want it to be part of the world. I want it to be part of the community.
Mhm.
Right. And that also brings to something I've been thinking about for a little bit. Oh, you go ahead.
I just want to say this last thing. It'd be like the way that they're doing with that Demacia with Noxus. I think people understand this more because of Arcane. It'd be like Piltover no longer being like the shining light and saying like let's integrate with like
Yeah.
we're okay with Zon now.
Yeah.
Let's start like we'll change our ways. Like completely
Yeah.
flip on their head that Piltover is like this shining light and Zon are like these criminals underneath and say like okay, no, we're just all gonna like work together now and we're gonna make it all happy go lucky.
That should never happen.
Yeah.
I think the conflict between Zon and Piltover should be dynamic. It should always change. Like there should be different events happening in terms of what Zon might be doing to Piltover or what Piltover might be doing to Zon. Things should always be happening. Things should be, getting climactic or soothing out, getting climactic again, all sorts of stuff like that. But they should never make up and be perfect friends.
Exactly.
That should never happen because that just makes for a very boring conclusion.
Yeah.
And now I also got me thinking about something for a while because one thing that we kind of feel like is a given that we bring up a lot is that you're going to pick between Demacia and Noxus. But the thing that scares me so much is seeing how much Blizzard backpedals on Alliance versus Horde. Yeah. Right? It's practically dead at this point.
It doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah,
they're gonna have
Alliance versus Horde's not a thing.
Cross faction / cross server guilds are coming.
Yeah. Oh, I believe it 100%. There'll definitely be some cross faction servers where it's literally just it makes zero difference. Like Alliance player can just walk into the Horde, like Orgrimmar. It makes no difference.
Imagine a gnome running around Orgrimmar.
Oh my god. Yeah.
Final Fantasy doesn't have this problem.
Yeah, no. They technically have like your city that you're associated with, but all the cities are buddy buddy. So it makes no difference. Yeah.
See, that's like
there's like small differences in terms of like the color of your mount that you get.
Yeah,
right?
I don't like that. Don't even give me a choice if it's not gonna make a difference. Like if
I agree.
Horde and Alliance does not make a difference, then just call it a new group. It's the Azerothians. And
yeah.
And you can go to any city and do whatever you want.
Yeah, seriously.
One
But
thing I hate more than good choices is pointless choices. I mean, one thing I hate more than a bad choice is a pointless choice.
I completely agree. 100%.
Mm.
And that's what gets me scared of like, okay, and that's the only MMO. World of Warcraft is the only MMO that has a faction system like that. And they're totally backpedaling on it because of all the people complaining about, because now people are just chasing quality of life in World of Warcraft, right?
Yeah, too
The
much.
more quality of life you give them, people are going to complain about the smallest inconveniences
Yeah.
in an MMO. But with Blizzard backpedaling on that so hard now, I'm worried that Riot will take that as okay, people don't like factions. They don't like a divide between the player base. That everyone should just be the same thing.
Go look at Classic.
Yeah, that's why you better believe I'm playing Season of Discovery on November
Yeah,
30th.
we both are.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because that perpetuates the faction war. There's literally
Yeah.
going to be world PvP. But now I'm scared of stuff like, oh my God, what if there is not going to be a Demacia versus Noxus thing with your player character? Like you don't choose and
No,
you're just an adventurer
there
and you
has
go
to
to
be.
Noxus and you go to Demacia and it's whatever.
No, if you're a Pilty, you can't go in Zon. If you're from Zon, you can't really just walk, stroll around Pilty.
Yeah.
Piltover. Same thing with Demacia and Noxus.
Dude,
Uh,
yeah. It scares me to
with
think about.
anything, with Ishtal, you're from anywhere. You can't freaking go in there because
Yeah, dude.
you're either Ishtali or you're not.
It should be divided like that because that makes the whole world so much more interesting and
Yeah.
so much more diverse. But I'm so worried that they're not going to do that, that there's not going to be a faction divide. Because I didn't even consider it being a possibility until like recently. I was like, dude, just like the loudest people right now do not like it in World of Warcraft.
Yeah.
And it makes me sad. But gosh dang it, we are both two people who love community driven content. And that's what Faction Divide does. And that's what the Noxus and Demacia would do. Having that world
Yeah.
PvP, you're gonna have communities that set up events. They do that. They still do that in World of Warcraft. I still see community driven events where Horde and Alliance players will actually coordinate times where they're gonna attack a certain city and you have to defend the city
Yeah.
and that kind of stuff. Or even like, oh no, these like Demacia players, they're camping this flight path. By the way, like no Noxus players can get into this outpost right
Yeah.
now, this neutral outpost. So guess what? You assemble the boys, you get your Noxus community, your PvP community together, and you fly in and you just start wiping them out. It's a massive war. Either you win or lose. Either way, it's so cool. Purely community driven stuff like that happened to me in WoW during BFA, and I loved it.
But is it going to be like, so you have so much of that. The reason I worry that they'll backpedal on this is because there's so many areas. Like in the WoW, you have Horde and you have Alliance. So everyone's making one of two choices.
Yeah.
But like, is there going to be enough people on, I chose Demacia and I chose Noxus?
Mhm.
Because then I feel like you'd have to have a mega server to be able to accomplish this.
That's true.
It wouldn't be able to be like a server, and imagine the same WoW server, but then it's split where it's not just there's Tauren are not a part of. Imagine every race is an individual faction,
Whoa.
right?
Yeah.
And okay, yeah, sure. The orcs and the night elves have beef,
Yeah.
right? And there's another faction of Quillbore, and the Tauren and Quillbore have beef, but the Tauren don't have Quillbore with the orcs, you know?
Oh yeah.
But they're not in the same faction. Like that's the kind of stuff that you have in here. Where it's not like
Oh.
it's split up, you know, like okay, you're Noxious and you're Demacian and you hate each other and you'll fight each other, but you don't have any beef with Piltover.
Yeah.
But Piltover doesn't like Zon at all, you know.
Yeah, that's true.
But neither of them have beef with Shurima.
It's true.
Yeah, but if you're from Shurima and you try to go into Ishtal, you'll get killed, and then they'll kill anyone. You know, and it's just like there's so much of that I think you need a large enough population to support that level of diverse conflicts and that big of a world to be able to make it where it's like, okay, now we can have these kind of divides and like what you're talking about with the Noxus and Demacia. But there just wouldn't be enough people if you make it the kind of server that we have now, where it's like, okay, that'd be imagine all the Tauren going to fly, which sounds amazing, but all of them flying to a flight pad to defend the Bloodhoof village or something like that.
Exactly.
It's like, it wouldn't be enough people to just organically let that happen.
Yeah, that's true.
So
I mean, like
server technology is probably improved.
Servers are always going to be tough, right? Especially because we both like the idea of not having like cross server stuff.
Yeah.
I want my server to be its own community with its own people, its own economy, right? And that stuff does not leave the server. Nothing comes into the server.
Yeah.
Everything is purely within the server. That's the world of Runeterra that I know.
Mhm.
These are the people that I know in Runeterra.
If Noxus flies to defend a flight path, you should see someone's name and recognize it and be like, oh yeah, that guy, I
Yeah.
remember seeing him in Noxus. Now, wow, now look at him, he's flying over there too.
Yeah.
Like I saw that guy crafting. But like right now, you could see a guy crafting, and then you could see a freaking, oh, there's a war going on. You fly there, and that guy doesn't see it on his map because he's on a whole different server.
Yeah.
He leaves Orgrimmar. It's like,
Yeah, you just kind of fade out of existence.
yeah,
like,
you're both flying,
oh,
and you're like, oh, maybe we're both going. He just disappears. It's like,
yeah.
okay.
Dude, seeing people disappear every time, it hurts me a little bit.
Yeah, it does make the world feel
Warcraft.
weird.
But yeah, and then there's also the issue of like you have server specific stuff. Yeah, unless it's like a mega server, you're gonna have, okay, this is the Noxus server, this is the Demacia server.
Yeah, that'll
All the Noxus players go here, because if you go to the Demacia server as a Noxus player, you're just gonna get like body camped.
yeah.
You're not gonna be able to do anything in the game because everyone's Demacia. And I think it's also just comes from like people who want PvP but don't want PvP.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? People want to win in PvP and they're too afraid to lose in PvP.
Yeah.
To where they don't want to go to like an even server.
I think that's where you have to favor the server's health over the player's choice.
I think
You know?
so too. You might have to like block off some servers where like, hey, you can't play as Demacian on the server right now. You can't make it any more Demacian characters on the server right now. Because it's like 70-30.
We know your buddy plays on this server. You can put your whatever you can say. I want to be notified once the server opens up for more Demacian players. But right now, yeah, it's capped out. Like we're at 60% Demacian, 40% Noxus. That's it. Like it has to go back a little bit more, and then we can then open up for Demacian again.
Yeah.
Or more people have to just make Noxy.
I agree. I genuinely think it comes down. I think there will be, like, if that does happen, if Riot makes that decision, if they do go with like server, like walled off servers and have a faction war and they do that kind of thing, I think it'd be better for the game if they do that, even though there'd probably be a lot of complaints about it.
Yeah.
People would get really mad on Twitter because they can't go onto their friend's server and play Demacian. But it'll make the game better for it.
Yeah,
it genuinely would.
People will enjoy the game.
Got to go against the grain.
Yeah,
especially in an MMO, dude. I say that all the time. I always say, especially in an MMO, is because it's such a unique case for a video game. You're gonna have situations where you're gonna have to literally go against the player, and the player will end up liking the game more in the long term for it.
Give them what they want. Give them what they want, not what they're asking for.
Yeah, exactly. Dude, I think Blizzard especially needs to learn that lesson.
Deadass.
I think any long running MMO runs into that issue eventually, right? People start having a vision after playing the game for like 2 years of what the ideal version of the MMO is. And then it comes into fruition and it's not as good as they think it is.
Yeah. That's the scariest thing. Is like if you just give the players what they want, the game will not end up in a good place.
Yeah.
Because the players never know what they want. It just doesn't even me saying what I want, everything that I want might not be the best for the game. I'm not 100% sure, but if I want a team of like 20 different developers who are working on the game, maybe we can brainstorm and come up with the best solution. But it should never be like what the player base wants. It should be what we strategically think about is best for the game. And if you really think about it, a balanced server is extremely good for the health of a game. Like it's detrimental if it's not.
Yeah,
we play on Weremist Accord, and that got us matched with freaking another server that's all aligned. I can't even go into PvP mode.
Neither can
because it's literally one. They get this other. So I'm not gonna get into like the benefits of turning on PvP and WoW.
Oh yeah, no.
But they get a lot of they get the benefits of being basically an underpopulated server for some reason.
Yeah,
and they outnumber us maybe 100 to 1.
It's not even funny. Yeah, there's no horde players on War Rest that are on War mode.
Yeah, because you're not incentivized to put on War mode for one, and two, you're up
against the most populated alliance server in the game.
Yeah,
like in the US.
It's detrimental. And instead of being like, let's try to match up servers, this server's all horde, this server's all doing, so try to make
yeah, it's like
it's never gonna work out. You just have to like force it to be.
Yeah. I'll definitely say if Riot decides to go faction war, which God, I hope they do.
Yeah, I would like that.
Yeah, it's definitely difficult to do, right? It's not as easy as just giving people the choice and setting up the servers. You gotta make sure that you set the stage properly for Noxus and Demacia to have some epic community moments.
And people can join. Like, okay, Noxus and Demacia are fighting, right? If you're Demacian 100%, you can't choose.
Yeah.
But it should say on the server, like, this fight is going on. if you'd like to support either Noxus or Demacia, if you're from like, let's just say Piltover because they're right next door.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to support Noxus or Demacia in this, you can. But by supporting them, eventually you won't be able to like, enter Demacia. You won't be able to, you'll be like a little bit higher in Noxus. You'll have access to different stuff, like almost like a reputation.
I was gonna say, yeah, so it's kind of like what's it called? Like the Bloodsail Buccaneers in Stranglethorn.
And it just
with the
happens.
Steam Weedle cartel.
And it just happens. Like if enough Demacian players die in an area or enough Noxus players, it gets flagged. It's not like it's not like it's somewhere. Oh, it's happening or it's scheduled. Like in 2 hours, there's going to be a war here. No, if enough players just happen to be just getting slaughtered in this area, then okay, then it gets flagged on the map, but it says there's a fight, and then the players who are dying are Noxus and Demacian. Okay, that's a Noxus and Demacian war. You can go and choose a faction to support, and you could fight in that battle.
Oh,
I want it to happen naturally.
That would be crazy. So you're not just picking when you make your character, then?
Yeah, no, like
if I just start off like neutral, both of them.
Unless you're from Noxus or Demacia.
Okay, so wait, so you still pick if you're from Noxus or Demacia?
Yeah. If I chose, I'm like when I'm making my character, I choose to make a human from Demacia.
Yeah.
When that comes up, you can't pick a side. You can either fight for Demacia or you're not fighting at all.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I was about to say, because then that's kind of weird, right?
No. Yeah. If you're Noxus and that fight's going on, you're Noxus. If you go to that fight, you are Noxy. You're not gonna fight for Demacia. That's weird. But if you're from Piltover, you're not favored for Noxus or Demacia. So you could join that fight and say, I'm fighting for Noxus.
Oh.
Like, I want to support Noxus.
That would be crazy.
Yeah. Or like if you're from Ionia, I mean, I would be weird if you support Noxus since you literally had a war with them. So I imagine that you'd support Demacia.
Yeah, like, you'd probably be already like hated by Noxus, maybe like neutral with Demacia or something like that.
Although I'm sure that there are Vestaya and Vestaya everywhere, but
you could still like maybe grind out that reputation.
Yeah, you can be like, I agree with Noxus that they should have taken over Ionia.
That should be really cool because you know what, that naturally makes an environment where when you do see a Noxus Vestaya, you're like, whoa, this dude grinded it out.
Like I'd want to see.
Like it should be rare because that's how it would be in Runeterra, lore wise. Is that you probably not see as many Vestaya, but you would see Vestaya every once in a while.
Yeah. I only want to limit player choice where it affects other players.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't affect other players if you're a Piltover person and you support Noxus or you support Demacia. You can do that. That doesn't affect any other players.
Yeah.
But when you make a choice that does affect other players, like I want to be a human that's 2 feet tall and has long arms. Okay, that affects other players. I want to be Demacian, but be able to walk around Noxus. That affects other players. If I want to join the server that's Noxus dominated, but I want to play for Noxus, that affects other players. If I want to bot in a game and farm everything out and flood the market with BS, that affects other players.
Oh, yeah.
So if you're affecting other players, that's where I say you need to limit choice. Everything else should be open up and like really do what you want.
I completely agree. Oh my god, yes. We want like what we're asking for is basically like D&D levels of freedom.
Yeah.
Right? Like you.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. Like
elaborate.
Like you cannot be this like 20-foot tall, insanely hulking freaking like what's it called? Like human
Cyclops.
Or sure. Cyclops.
Actually, they're pretty tall. No, just do a human.
In Runeterra?
I don't know, but I will find out.
Oh, okay. Well, no, you cannot be like a 20-foot tall Yordle, right? But you can still pick your height between the shortest possible Yordle and the tallest possible Yordle. Yeah. I want that to be true for everything in the game.
Yeah, but you can't be a 20-foot Yordle.
There are limitations, but at the same time, as long as you're within those limits, do whatever the heck you want.
Exactly.
Go crazy.
Yep.
But yeah, don't go too crazy. Yeah. Don't abuse the freaking like economy where you're like putting stuff up for auction and you're making like one piece of wool and selling it 1 billion times, you have 1 billion pieces of wool.
Yeah.
Don't do that. But at the same time, other than that, put whatever you want up for auction. If you have a freaking smelly old boot that's a gray item that sells for 1 copper, dude, I don't freaking care. Put it up on the auction house. Nobody's probably going to see it because nobody's searching for it. You can do that.
I'm gonna buy it and I'm gonna screenshot it. And day one, I'm gonna send it to you and be like, I got one. I'm gonna save it in my whatever, my bank forever, just for this conversation. I got one smelly old boot.
Oh my god!
I hope it goes for 1 copper. Watch it start. It's selling for like 12 gold.
Oh my god, dude! I was thinking, oh my god, I don't know how like this just pivoted in my head, but I was like, yeah, you probably get an old boot from fishing. Professions, archaeology.
Okay, there's certain professions that everyone should be able to do. Obviously fishing, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's no need to invest. You can't.
Yeah, that should not take up like your one profession slot.
Yeah,
and then be a blacksmith, and a fisherman. You can be an alchemist and a fisherman. Don't matter. Everyone can be a fisherman.
And that may be biased, right? Because of what we played in the past. But if there's like a whole extensive fishing
That's true. Yeah,
profession,
how
you
in
can
depth is
absolutely
fishing?
do it.
Yeah, yeah.
But there's certain professions, I don't even think fishing is one of them, that everyone should be able to do because it's like it's more focused on the world kind of thing.
Yeah.
And one of those is
I
archaeology.
can't believe we've not talked about archaeology.
The
yet.
best profession ever created. And it gets no love, no attention.
It's very true.
Yeah.
But gosh dang it. Because I mean,
Explain a little bit of archaeology. What you mean by when you're saying the profession of archaeology? You can give them
so
the layout.
all right. So basically, as an archaeologist, the whole point of it in a nutshell is just you're digging up artifacts of a time before,
Like
you
a
know?
real archaeologist.
Like a real archaeologist. And I think the way World of Warcraft does it, it's freaking great.
Mhm.
All right. You play a fun little mini game where you put down a telescope, and whichever way a telescope's pointing, that's where the artifact is. Get closer. You're basically playing a warmer, colder
Yeah.
with the artifact.
Golder. Yeah.
Yeah, you're playing hotter, colder. But then, you know, once you find the artifact, guess what? It depends on where you are in the world. That's what artifact you get.
Yeah.
So if you're in the island of Zandalar, where the Zandalari trolls live, and guess what? Zandalari trolls have been around for a very long time. Literally one of, if not the first residents of Azeroth, of the
Yeah.
world.
This would be like Ionia. If you went to Ionia and Runeterra.
Yeah. You're going to find some Zandalari troll artifacts like ancient pots and
Yeah.
like, you know, just like tools that they use for farming. It's all the little flavor. It's the right kind of flavor that you love to see. And that's why even like if you're in like you know, like Kalimdor in like the night elf place,
Yeah.
you're still gonna find some troll artifacts
Mhm.
because guess what? Trolls were there before. So it's
Yeah,
that
that's
kind of
cool.
like, yeah, it's that kind of really cool stuff that I love. It's very much just flavor for lore that you're gonna find everywhere in Runeterra, I hope.
I feel like it fleshes out the stuff that you don't really want to invest too much time in fleshing out. Now, for example, let's stick with Ionia. This is just one example. Off the top of my head, there's plenty of them. You
Mhm.
had the Titan War in Ionia that really no one knows anything about. It's like ancient history. We say that maybe the Vastaya came from that. They were Vastaya Shirei. That's how they won the Titan War. In reality, there's just like some really huge Titan Goliath statues for some reason. And there's a bunch of weapons, huge weapons strewn out all over the area in this one spot. And so we don't really know what this is for, but that's the story that we believe that could possibly be true. But the truth is, after the Rune Wars, like a lot of history is gone.
Yeah.
Anyways, like this could be that profession where you're like exploring the history before the Rune Wars, the stuff
Yeah.
that is maybe a little bit shrouded in mystery, or we don't really know anything about, or stuff
Mhm.
that can prelude to future stuff. For example, if we're going to explore the Titan War in the next expansion, there can be like this archaeologist thing where you're exploring and you're digging up, and you're, instead of just being fed the lore, it's like you're uncovering the lore yourself, which
Yeah,
makes it
dude.
so much sweeter when you're
Mm.
working for the lore, and like you're uncovering the lore yourself instead of someone else just handing it to you and being like, hey, here's the lore.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, and you work for it and you get like that reward, that payoff, and it's like something that's abstract, a little bit confusing. It can be interpreted in different ways.
Yeah.
And you start theorizing in your head, like, what does this mean for the Titan War?
I was
What's
just gonna
this-
say that.
It's yeah,
Because the great thing about archaeology is that majority of the time it raises more questions than answers, right?
yeah,
It will just confuse you even further because you realize how little you actually know about the old world
yeah,
of Runeterra,
Yeah.
hopefully, right? And I think it's so perfect because it starts creating discussion in forums.
yeah,
On like Reddit, you're gonna find someone talking about, oh hey, in patch 2.3 or whatever the heck of Runeterra MMO, there's this new like archaeology artifact in this area, and this is the flavor text for it. And it's like, what the heck happened before the Rune Wars, guys?
Yeah.
Because it just like reveals just a little bit of information to get you even more confused
yeah.
about what happened before the Rune Wars. That kind of stuff is so perfect for archaeology.
That's where you sprinkle in the what ifs.
Yeah.
And then you let the player base kind of go wild with theories and speculation and wondering. And that's the fun stuff when the player base is starting to like make their own theories about where the story is going to go based on like what you sprinkled in there. And the archaeology is the best way, absolutely the best way to do it.
Yeah, dude.
And that's a profession that everyone should be able to do.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, it's another profession that should just be like a general profession. Yeah, because like yeah, they can go crazy with like fishing. Yeah, make that its own thing, fishing and cooking or whatever. But everyone needs to do archaeology.
Yeah.
And God, I hope it's in the game. I mean, I'm already hoping professions are in the game. They probably will be. But gosh dang it. The Runeterra is made for archaeology. There's so much stuff we don't know.
So during the War with the Void in Acathia,
Mhm.
Ishtal was involved, and they made that great Goliath like structure to battle the Void.
Oh yeah.
And there was this leader, I always forget his name, but he like went off and died in some tomb in Shurima. And I think
Whoa.
it happened, I think he's in Niramazet, the tomb. But see, like stuff like that, if we're gonna start exploring something like that, right? I'm not sure if I
Yeah.
just said it accurately, but you
Yeah.
get what I'm saying. There was this guy, he built up this huge structure to battle the void. It eventually gets destroyed, and he ends up dying in some tomb in Shurima.
Yeah.
If you want to lead into that for the next expansion, like, okay, we're going to explore this tomb, instead of just being like, oh, well, there it is.
Yeah. Oh, it wasn't there before. Now it's there.
Yeah, they can be like, there's some archaeological scraps that you uncover, and it's like pieces of maybe the monolith, which what it was
Whoa.
called. And you know, after a while of digging, you end up finding these pieces of the monolith, and that's it.
Yeah.
And then when it happens, people are like, what are you guys talking about? We've known about this forever.
Yeah,
What about you guys
dude.
don't do
This was 2
archaeology?
expansions ago. You guys
Yeah.
not do archaeology?
Yeah, make everyone feel stupid. And then people are going to theorize this stuff like going forward. What does this mean for everything? Like that's the kind of stuff that I'm talking about. There's stuff like this everywhere, all over the world, where you can explore hidden histories. Obviously, in the Freljord, you have the
Yeah, Feller's gonna be so much, isn't there?
yeah. There's so much stuff everywhere. So I would love to see. I mean, Shadow Isles, you can have archaeology there where you're looking back at the history of the Blessed Isles.
Oh my god, you start buying Blessed Isle artifacts, like
Yeah.
the people that lived there and like
Yeah.
the things they had, things they used.
Yeah. If you get really good, you find another world rune and just take over Runeterra.
Can you imagine you're doing archaeology
Just like
and then you just see world ruin, legendary item.
legendary item kills instantly entire
Yeah.
cities.
Shuts down server.
It's a 20-second cast.
Oh my god, dude. No, yeah, I mean, gosh, man, Runeterra has so much lore set up. And all that history, the nice thing about archaeology is that all that history is not really like mandatory most of the time, right? For you to see the big bad and go fight him, like we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
So archaeology, the nice thing about it is that it's not really like it's not going to improve your stats, right?
Mhm.
You're not going to be a better warrior for doing archaeology. Okay. Maybe you're going to have some like cool room in like Demacia or Noxus that you get to fill up with your artifacts, you know, or player housing, please fill up with your artifacts. That'd be
Yes.
insanely cool, actually.
That needs to happen. Player housing doesn't need to be a thing. Like that's weird that it's not a thing in WoW, but I like how it isn't done in Final Fantasy.
Super nice in Final Fantasy. It's actually some of the best player housing I've ever seen in any game ever.
Yeah, explain that
I
a little
love
bit.
it.
Explain player housing in Final Fantasy, and then maybe we can make if there's any adjustments that we can make for this game. Like we don't have a lot of time left.
Yeah.
Just do it
No,
anyways.
yeah.
We'll push through it, and then we'll talk about it more next time. Dude,
Yeah. Final Fantasy 14 is basically like land is actually limited in Final Fantasy 14. So you can kind of think of it like let's say there's like a little like a residential area in each of the 3 major cities in the game. And those residential areas essentially have their own servers, right? There are like maybe like, 90 different servers. They're all the same exact looking thing,
Mhm.
but they each have their own plot of land with their own houses, their own like like their own land. And you can buy the land, build your house up on it, put whatever the heck you want in the front yard, put all the nice little things, go into the house, decorate it however the heck you want. And then, guys, maybe when you're done, you can sell that plot of land because you own it,
yeah,
which is insane to me. So not only does your house just like naturally have value just for all the cool stuff you collect, but that plot of land that your house is on actually has value. That's an actual house in the game that other players can go to that server in that residential area and see your house and go to it. That to me is insanely cool. Because that also means, guess what? You have neighbors too.
yeah,
You have people living next to you with their own houses that you can go see.
yeah. You can be like, you need to change your fountain. You're devaluing my home with
Yeah.
ugly garbage.
True.
Just put them a letter
You're
in their
just like-
mailbox. Hey, this is your neighbor. Do you need any money to help you with this fountain because it's trash?
Are you okay? Even just like where your land is going to be important, right? Because like, yeah, I know especially like in Ul'dah, I love Ul'dah. I'm an Uldanian, like live or die, right? They got a cool little like windmill, like apartment building at the very top.
Mhm.
So naturally, I want my house to be as high up as possible next to that cool little windmill. So like your location in the residential area matters. There's gonna be different spots. Maybe you want on the cliffside. There's a cliffside you can like put a house down on. There's geographical significance. And that to me is so freaking cool. Even if you're just like a 1-player guy and you just want like a small apartment,
Yeah,
you can do that because you go into the apartment building and you click on the door to go like into like up like the elevator essentially. and you pick what room you want to go to. And each room is essentially like its own like little server. You can think of it like that.
And it's not, is it like infinite?
No, there's only like I actually don't remember how many rooms there were. Probably closer to like 90.
That's important.
90 rooms.
That's important. I don't want to see where it's like, okay, player housing, you're not, everyone has the same house and the same spot.
Yeah, no, like I am room 53.
Yeah, that's important.
In the apartment on this server.
And it's
you
like a
go
phase.
to the server. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I agree. Because like the apartments, they don't actually have like any geographical location, right? You just click on the elevator, click on the room you want to go to, and you load into the room.
Mm-hmm.
But there still is a limited number of rooms, and your room has a number, right? So like if you're room 1, it's probably worth more than room like 53.
Yeah, that.
And that to me is really cool. Also, there's no like limits like what server you can or can't go to, right? You literally just go to the residential area and you just click on which server you want to go to. Yeah, like which residential area you want to go to. So you can be like, yeah, I have this house in this residential area, and you can just go there yourself anytime.
I like that. I don't mind that being phased.
Me too. Because there's still going to be like, you can't just have that one residential area unless you make it insanely massive.
Yeah.
So I think that's so cool. But yeah, Final Fantasy 14, I think it's very important to actually have some geographical like location where your house is that any player can just go to and they'll see it and they can go inside and everything's there.
And just to say this too, I 100% I want player housing, but I will take guild housing as well as an option.
Oh, absolutely.
I don't mind it either way, but there has to be some place where you can put like, you can have guild housing maybe, and that can be, you know, a limited number or whatever in certain places.
Yeah.
And then in that guild housing, you can have like a phase in it where it's like the guild, if you're a guild member, you reach a certain point, you can get like a room, put your stuff in there.
That's actually true for Final Fantasy 14, and it's stinking awesome.
Yeah, see,
you have a guild house and you can get a room in the guild house.
That's awesome. I would settle for that, but there has to be some form of like, this is your place in the world. And
yeah.
Like my place is one in Bloodhoof Village. That's where I log out. That's where
I can tell you where I live and I don't have to be logged on or anything. You can just go there.
Yeah.
And you can see my house and there it is because I told you where it is.
Yeah, exactly. That needs to happen.
Very cool. Yeah, I think Final Fantasy 14 does an amazing job with that actually.
Yeah. Or I'm in this guild. This is where our house is for the guild.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, dude. Can you imagine getting into a guild for the first time and they're like, yeah, here's our house. Like here's where it is. And then you go there, you get to see your guild house for the first time. Like you're a member now.
See what they've killed.
You have a clubhouse essentially.
Yeah. Like they have like pieces of a dragon's wing from some boss fight. Who knows?
Yeah, they got some freaking like big like void tentacle from Acacia.
Yeah, which was only available at the time when the braid was relevant. Also, you know,
dude, please, yeah, we've already talked about. I don't care about FOMO. All right, I want limited time stuff because eventually power scaling makes everything irrelevant.
Yeah,
it's gonna be power scaling in the MMO, right? That's inevitable. I can't see a world where they don't have power scaling, and just you have to make things limited so that way they actually have value at the time that they were done.
I think this is the emphasis on this episode is limit players to what they can do based on what affects other players, but that when it doesn't affect other players, give them free reign to do whatever they want.
Definitely.
And that's that. Like archaeology doesn't affect anyone. Everyone should have access to it. Everyone should be able to do it. It's like something cool. Explore the lore.
Yeah.
If it's something that affects other players, no, you shouldn't be able to do it.
Yeah, I completely agree. And just like as long as it's within the limitations of Runeterra, do whatever the heck you want.
Yeah, that goes with the FOMO thing too. Like if it affects other players, which it does, it degrades the value of their work.
Yeah,
they did it when it's relevant. If everyone can get that dragon scale, if the guild just formed yesterday, they go back to the first raid ever and just get the dragon scale. If it's not as hard as it was when the original group did it, then they shouldn't be able to get the dragon scale. Yeah, absolutely, dude. Oh my god, definitely. I think especially for player housing, it adds so much so much more reason to go out and do stuff like that. You know, it's basically like another cosmetic for your character, you know, is player housing. It adds so much more agency to everything in the game. So much more cool, rare stuff to get. Beautiful. I 100% agree. I really hope archaeology makes it into the game. Heck yeah, dude. Oh, hope and pray. Okay. Best profession. We'll continue this conversation for Progression podcast because it's all we've been talking about. It's so good. We need professions. Riot. We need it. More important than character progression, man. I swear. Profession progression is extremely important. I hope this might not. I can't guarantee you guys this will be the last episode that we'll talk about profession. Talk about it for next. But I hope you enjoyed this episode. We'll continue this conversation in the next one right here in the Brazen Hydra pub of Bilgewater. You can find me at Ngrove on social. You can find me at Ngrove on socials and YouTube, and
You can find me, Conquest, at Conquest95 on Twitter.
to stay up to date on the goings on for this podcast specifically, follow us at the Brazen Hydra on Twitter, where you can add us specific questions or suggest topics for us to talk about. You can also find us at thebrazenhydra.com. Thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you in the next one.